So just to give in context of where, as I was mentioning, I went to Tripura. While I was teaching at NID, I got this assignment to go and teach uh, at an institute which was newly set up by the National Institute of Design. The institute was designed to train and empower local artisans from Agartala and Tripura or from the Northeast working in bamboo and cane. And the whole program was developed to kind of give more exposure to the craftspeople and new techniques and tools that they can engage in to collaborate with other people like designers, artists, architects, and take the local craft into a new form. So my assignment was to go and teach them drawing, how to draw, and how to draw technical drawings, how to read a technical drawing and convert that drawing into a product, so that that becomes a platform or a tool to interact with uh, other creative designers or architects and artists like that. And when I was given the assignment to do so, I had no clue how I'm going to do that, because when you're working with the craftsmen, uh, there is a disconnect with language and how do you communicate with them in their local language, because they're not, we learn in English, but when we converse with them, that doesn't work. So I said I cannot do it. But Mr. Ranjan, who was a professor at NID and he was leading this program and designing the curriculum, he said, you will go there, you'll figure it out. And next week I landed up in Tripura and I saw bamboo for the first time in a different perspective. In Northeast is what you call the basket of bamboo in India. It goes everywhere and different kinds of things, and it's a way of life there. So you see it all around. People walking around with bamboo, they're transporting bamboo like this. And they've been used in different forms of daily use, very utilitarian products with a simple pole of bamboo. Then you get to see there are of different forms. And then I was wondering, is that the bamboo, like on the right, the image you see, there is a bamboo basket in which you have these bamboo poles in which they're carrying water. So they're putting water from a lower valley to a higher place. And very simple uh, contraptions like this where are like an art form. It's like so simple that you cannot do anything beyond this. And this exposure to me was overwhelming because I never saw bamboo like this before. My perception of bamboo was ladders, scaffolding to build structures, or huts and very poor man houses. But since this was a way of life and bamboo was their main material to build anything, from a house to a very fine bird cage, and they would just use one single tool to convert this material into this beautiful applications, just a knife. And this exposure, I stayed there for almost 8 weeks, almost 2 months, and I get to see what they do for me to understand actually what the craft is all about and how they live and how they practice it. And these were visuals from 2003 and 4 when I went there for the first time. Things have changed now after 17, 20 years almost. Now you see more modern materials replacing these beautiful pencils. But the scale of application of the material was quite amazing because they would do very fine basketry to these houses that I showed you. And I never worked with bamboo before, so I had no clue how to design something with the material. All I could think it as like I would work with wood as a material. So I made this drawing so that they can read the drawing and make a prototype. So traditionally, craftsmen make things which evolve over a period of time. They figure out a solution to something and they keep refining it over many generations, and it comes to a state that it becomes a really refined design product. Uh, so here I gave them this drawing to make this chair. This was my first chair in bamboo. I had no clue how to make it. So since they were already craftsmen working with bamboo, they advised me, okay, Sandeep, we should get this species of bamboo for the legs, and for the back, we need to get another species because it will be easy to make strips out of it and to bend it and give a form to it. So then I understood that there are different kinds of species that are available in bamboo. So one that is used for weaving is a different species where the internodal distance of bamboo is quite long, and it could be made into very fine slivers so the nodes don't interfere while they're weaving. And that exposure and those 8 weeks I spent, I learned more from them than I could teach them back. Uh, so I, because there was so much done already, I had no idea that if I'll be coming back to work with craftspeople or with bamboo as a material, because I didn't see anything that I could contribute and do something new. So as a token of remembrance, I wanted to do something and take back with me. On the left, you see a stool that I had done using the principle of tensegrity. It's a very simple and stool. I thought I should make one in bamboo and take it. Uh, so if you see, there's a canvas seat on the one with the wooden sticks. On the right, I made that thing for a canvas seat, but then I realized I'm not doing anything more to it. I'm just taking 3 bamboo poles with me and I'm putting a canvas seat later. So in the last 2 days, I thought, why not make the seat in bamboo? And so trying to figure out a triangular construction in bamboo, we ended up doing this little module. And once we made that, all of them, so this was my group of students, and they came from different states in the Northeast. And once I made this little module, they said, Sandeep, we never made something like this before. We never used bamboo in this form, trying to split it, open it, and laminate it. So all I did was I came back with the triangular module and tried and explored it further. So I came back to NID. There was a workshop. I had an artisan associate who was in the bamboo center, and I explored different forms and structures to see how stable it is. And so this was the stool that happened after the triangular module. So this kind of was the starting point for me to explore, because I saw something beyond what I saw when I was there in Tripura, what they make. And this really weighs very light. This particular module weighs around 250 grams, and it can take tons of load. And no other material can replace this form with that kind of weight to strength ratio. So these are few explorations which I later continue to do to understand how I can use them in more functional ways, trying to give it more meaning and more product-based approach. So here on the left, you see the bamboo artisan from Tripura, Shishir. So I worked along with him for a few months at NID to develop few products, all the prototypes that I had in my mind that I can use this module in many forms. So I try to also combine different materials, like if you see the steel base on which the bamboo is fixed. Um, so this is a knockdown structure which becomes a bench. And later on, I moved on to start my studio. Then I happened to get a project where they invited me to come and actually work with the same uh, in the state and explore and make something new. so that they can commercialize and work with artisans to create a new paradigm of industry for bamboo in Northeast. So then I took the same idea further. I thought this could be a good opportunity for me to kind of see something coming into the market, people using it and buying it. And we started developing the same technique into many more products. And this was the first chair. It's basically the same triangle which extends into a different form. And the same construction went on to develop other products like this chair. So while we were making this, all the artisans have had no clue of how the final product was shaping up. And while we're making this, if you see on the left, there are lots of pieces being put together and glued together to create the frame. And they were not sure whether this would structurally stand and would be stable enough to take a person's load. Then I said, if the triangle works, hopefully this would also work. And so if you see on the right is the first prototype, and it could take tons of load, and the chair would just weigh around a kilogram or a little more than that. And so this kind of proved the concept that we can take this idea of construction using bamboo, which we've never done before, and create a range of products. So these are a few more explorations we did during that time. It's like a bookshelf because bamboo is we can bend with heat, with a flame torch, or with steam, or with hot air gun, depending on the thickness of the material. Different intensity of heat is required. So here we used a particular species of bamboo, which is very unique to Tripura. It's not available anywhere else, and if it doesn't grow anywhere else like it grows in that particular state. So during the first stage, we made these explorations, few ideas, and it so happened at my studio, one of my interns said we should send it to the Red Dot Design Award, and I had no clue about Red Dot Award, and we won the award that year, and we got a lot of inquiries, and that's when I started a company to produce them and sell, so that I can connect from the farmer who grows bamboo to the market and try to understand the whole chain of ecosystem that kind of goes into developing a craft sector. And it was quite hard because that ecosystem never existed before. So I just jumped into it, bootstrap, funds from family and friends. This patch of land that you see where we built the studio belonged to my friend. They encouraged me to get going there and get started off. And so the whole idea here was, and the philosophy behind the studio and the workshop was to bring in traditional knowledge of working with a material and the skills and knowledge that a craftsman has, and combine it with modern tools and technology without losing the essence of the craft and and the place it belongs to. And how do we create something much more useful and functional in everyday life? Because traditional crafts in India, if you see, uh, over the many generations, they become more decorative, more like gifting products or something that you buy and put it on the wall, rather than use it in your everyday life. So the whole objective was, can we take and bring these traditional practices, which traditionally were meant for everyday use, but never uh, evolved into that because industrial products overtook all the crafted products. So the studio started with a lot of activities. We started exploring and taking the material into a different dimension trying to see how we can push the envelope to change the perception of bamboo as a material. Because the perception of bamboo still kind of in India, if you say it's a poor man's timber, and it grows fast, so it can be harvested easily, and you can build things with it, and if it doesn't last, you can replace it very easily. So people's notion about the material was not so great as compared to wood or any other natural material that you find. And to change that perception completely, I had to work very hard with my artisans and craftsmen to develop a product which could make a statement, and wonder if it is made in bamboo, and see if they can find any value in the product that we could make. So the first few years was quite challenging because once I started this company to produce, it took us almost 3 years to sell our first product, which was just a chair, because the making process was so intense and complicated, because nothing was made like this before. And we were also trying to figure out in the process how to streamline the production so that the effort that goes into it can be reduced, but we can still produce them in numbers. So the first 3-4 years just went on to kind of refine the product. So I'll just show you one example of how it is made, so you'll understand the complexity of the product. So this is the chair, and that's how it is made. So if you can see my cursor on the screen. Hello.
Hi, Sandeep. We can see the slide.
Can you see my cursor moving on it?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So what you see here is a bamboo pole. So we have split it between these 2 points, here and here. So they're next to the node. So that doesn't split any further. The node stops it from splitting it, because bamboo is a material where it's linear fiber. So the moment you cut, it tends to split. So this particular pole has been split and cut, and on the left you see the shape that has been bent from that single pole. And on the right is another pole which forms the other part, and they come together like this. So, and when we start, it's really crude. The bamboo is really raw, and we bend with heat. So you see a lot of these burn marks. So we have to compensate for all that. So the finished products, when it's done, it is clean and refined, and they're all put together and laminated. So it was a very time-consuming process of doing all this, and most of my time went into kind of streamlining this whole thing so that we can bring down the costs of time. And so once it's finished, it looks like this. So we develop lots of jigs and fixtures. So when lots of artisans make one product, it comes well together when it's assembled, because it's all handmade. We have to make sure that if 5 to 10 people are making the same component, it should all come together well. And they had to be trained to keep few things in mind. So these were my initial days of making. We have streamlined quite a bit, and it's always been a collaboration with the craftsmen, because they've been good with that material. If you need something, they'll quickly make the product, but they were not aware of the quality and the finish, and what are the fine things that they need to take care while making it, so that it doesn't multiply in different stages and becomes exponential. So we could manage to batch produce, and all the products are almost similar in terms of dimensions and scale. Uh, and we want to took it further and push the envelope to kind of add more value to it through more traditional techniques that are practiced in Indian craft sector. Here, it's a technique of lacquering with natural lacquer and pigments to give it a little more depth and dimension. So from here on, it went on to kind of innovating and figuring out to add more value to the material. And this was our first set of collection. Uh, So the amazing thing about this technique is we are still making new products using the same technique, and we keep adding on different products. So I'll just take you through some of uh, the details and product shots. And this particular was a special edition, which was auctioned at Christie's in London in 2019. So this was a long journey when I started, and the product going to a major auction house to be auctioned as a contemporary design piece. And they were exhibited in a lot of shows around the world, and quite well appreciated for how the bamboo was used. If you remember the first slide when you made the prototype of the chair, where it looked very crude and raw, shaped up after many years of refinement and craftsmanship uh, to be something like this. And when I started the business, a lot of people discouraged me to get into making furniture or get into something like a manufacturing setup and working with crafts. A lot of people discouraged me because they said there is a lot of furniture that comes from China and all the other places. And in India, there was no culture of creating anything original. Mostly everything is traded, apart from the crafts that you see. Uh, in this globalization, what happened, everything started coming in, and you were getting cheaper products coming in from China. And a lot of people discouraged me when I started the business, and I was looking for funding. That why don't you just get furniture from China and sell it in India? And I'm just showing you this slide because this was the first project we did after we started the company, and this was a hotel in a boutique hotel in China. And our first lot of furniture went back to China, and the hotel is called the Temple Hotel, and it also won the best boutique hotels in the world. I think 2011. There are some products I'm trying to show the kind of quality we achieved from where we started. And this whole journey was over a period of 10 years. This was an interesting project. I had a client, they were opening up a new fashion brand and they were launching it in London. Uh, and they wanted me to do uh, three sculptures with bamboo. Uh, and we just had a couple of months to conceptualize and execute the whole idea. So these are more sculptural aspect of the material. So we looked at different dress forms and try to interpret them as cultural elements using bamboo as a material. Uh, these are all lacquered in red because their identity was in particular red. So yeah, that's my journey so far. We have added many more products, but I have not put them in the slides. But it's a journey that is on.